Hello, good morning. Good morning? It's afternoon now.
Afternoon, yeah.
Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, May 7th.
I believe so. I can check my phone.
Are we right? Did I guess right?
Yep. Wednesday, May 8th.
We have our lunch and coffee here, and we are doing a podcast about self-harm. This is an assignment for social sciences. This is the psychology unit. However, there is going to be a little bit of anthropology and sociology thrown in there in certain aspects.
But you have to expect that.
Yeah. Okay, let's start it off. You start us off.
The two big questions to answer is how much nature versus nurture comes into play when somebody develops the traits connected to self-harm and eventually commits it.
And the second one's right there.
Mm-hmm.
How do people make a meaning and purpose out of self-harm? I'm kind of cooked with those questions. We will be revisiting said questions at the end after we cover everything about self-harm.
Yeah, we're just going to go through everything and talk about what the questions are and everything like that, and then we'll revisit all the questions.
And then we're also going to visit alternates to self-harm, but also like if you physically cannot stop, then how to limit it to make it not as damaging.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Yes.
So what's the first slide?
What is self-harm? So self-harm is a method of harm that is intentional and meant to hurt yourself.
Yeah. So
and then just scroll to the side.
Often associated with mental health and physical health problems, actually, and we will be covering that in a moment of what mental illnesses it is most common with and what physical illnesses it may be most common with. It's actually chronic is the big one. So mental health, let's keep this in mind, please. Mental health is often mixed up with mental illness. It's important to keep in mind that it's like physical health and physical illness. They are not the same thing. Physical illness is a branch of physical health, just like mental health. Mental illness is a branch of mental health. So let's keep that in mind, please. So why exactly do people self-harm, right? Because we've covered what it is, but it's like, why would you do it?
So there can be a bunch of different reasons why people self-harm. A few of the reasons why that we have written down here is to cope with grief, loss, home issues, or school/work issues, mental health problems, doing it for attention, and I don't mean that in like they're only doing it because they want people to feel bad for them. It's almost
there
as like
people who do that in the world.
Yes, of course, but
we
it
don't
can
mean
also be as like a cry for help.
Exactly. We do cover that too about the attention, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. And then to direct emotion inward to remind the person that they can they are alive and that they are still on this earth. And like I just mentioned, to indirectly ask for help sometimes, because feelings are very complicated and sometimes people don't know how to put their emotions into words. And so they try and find a way to ask for help by taking it out on themselves physically.
So how exactly does attention correlate into self-harm? Like I said, we were going to cover it. We are. So the most common one, actually, and this is probably one of the saddest ones in my opinion, is glass children. So we do cover what glass children are. Just give us a moment and we will get through the rest of this list. People could be feeling unheard. So they're like, hey, look at me. For example, look at me. I have slits on my wrist. Pay me attention. Hear me.
Almost feeling like a black sheep.
Yeah, exactly. Or wanting your parents to pay attention to you, which does feed into feeling unheard and glass children. So, what exactly is a glass child? Did we fill out this slide?
No.
Nope. Because we are both glass children, so we don't have
we know from experience, and we can just talk about it because we know what it feels like to be a glass child.
We both have older brothers on the spectrum, so essentially the medical term of being a glass child means that you are born either with an older or younger sibling that has some form of developmental disorder or some kind of mental disorder. It could be as simple as having just really bad anxiety, and your parents it'll be required for your parents to give more attention to your sibling, so then your sibling remains stable.
Yeah, because they need that extra support.
And then sometimes that just leads into you getting forgotten or feeling forgotten.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what a glass child is, right? Okay. Next one? Yes.
Okay.
Unless you have more to add?
No, I don't think so. So the next slide that we are going to be talking about is intentional versus unintentional, like, forms of self-harm. So intentional can be deliberately committing the act of harm to yourself, whether that's like, there's multiple different types, and we'll cover that later. Some of the unintentional ways of hurting yourself is not realizing you're harming yourself and blocking out and waking up to being harmed. So almost like you kind of go into like a blackout state. You're not thinking, and you just do what you think is right in the moment. And then when you realize what you've done, that's when you realize that you've just hurt yourself.
So next we have the types of self-harm. Now this is a very long list, so let's buckle up here, because I believe this list is 3 slides long.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Lord.
I was locked in yesterday. I did this yesterday. Okay, so types of self-harm is mostly physical harm, which is you could be cutting or carving into your skin, which is most common in biological females. People tend to use it using knives or razors or etc., you know?
Pretty much finding anything they can.
Or breaking a glass and using a shard. Like, some people do that. Carving happens when it's involved, so it's evolved from cutting. So cutting isn't enough, so you start carving into yourself. And that is much more severe harm. And the places that are most common to happen is, I know every pep talk video will go, oh, it's on the wrists. They've evolved thighs and stomach, especially the upper thighs. Okay?
It can be anywhere, really. But some of the most common spots.
And then biting. So biting your own body, and this is very common with people with development disorders. I have a relative who's on the spectrum,
like autism or something like that,
and they bite themselves sometimes when they're overwhelmed, and that harms them. So some more types are burning, so using cigarettes, lighters, matches, candles, etc., and that is the most common in biological males. So females tend to cut, males tend to burn. I find that really interesting.
Yeah. I was just thinking that, because
I couldn't find like a deep dive of the difference of how like the brain works and everything for all of that quite yet.
Yeah.
But
well, it's gonna be hard
I do want to do that. I do want to see if they have that. So pinching, a very less common form because it does a lot less harm overall. It's temporary relief with pain, but it doesn't last as long as other methods. So like I said, it's not going to be as common because
and it doesn't leave like a permanent mark. It's only there temporarily, depending on how hard you're pinching yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and then also we have hair pulling. So pulling on hair. There's this actual disorder where it's like pulling out hair because you have to, like you feel like you have to,
like you're really stressed or stuff like that.
But there's an actual disorder of just pulling out hair because you feel like you're obligated to. This is not the same. This is pulling on hair or pulling out hair solely for the fact that you need to harm yourself. We have scratching and rubbing. That's pretty self-explanatory. You can be aggressively rubbing yourself until
like something like just rubbing your skin is not gonna do you harm. But if you're like sitting there and you're like really rubbing and trying to cause like friction with the skin, then that can be a form of self-harm.
Yeah. Sorry, the grass is tickling my thigh.
That's why I had to put my sweater under where I'm sitting. Okay.
Next we have banging and hitting, which is the most common form. Sorry, I thought I said most common in and nothing else. It's just the most common form. We have smacking oneself, banging head against the wall, purposefully slamming body into objects. So if you're tired and delusioned and you slam your body into a door frame like I do all the time, that's not self-harm if you're doing it unintentionally. No. You're not having that.
Yeah, you're tired.
Yeah, you're tired.
Yeah.
You're tired. You're walking to the bathroom at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. You just woke up.
I woke up my parents last night doing that.
Oh.
Healing prevention. So preventing injuries from healing, so like picking scabs or putting hand sanitizer over your cuts, like that really overall just prevents it.
Yeah, just like keeping it open, not letting the actual scars heal.
Okay, we have more. So we have an emotional one, which is basically just being rude to yourself, bullying yourself.
Yeah,
so,
almost like talking down on yourself.
Yeah, that's actually
giving
one of the
yourself
points.
a hard
So
time.
it's calling yourself names, berating yourself, holding yourself to unreasonable standards.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I remember, actually, I did this unintentionally before when I was younger. I'd tell myself, I need to get a 90 on this test, or I need to get a 95. And I'd hold myself to these standards when I didn't understand the unit at all. And then I'd get like a 60 and I'd get pissed off. This was elementary school. Let's keep this in mind.
Yeah.
But in high school, what I found is hold yourself to a, 50-60. Even if you did good in the unit, 50-60. So you can never get disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I feel like that's really helped also my personal self-esteem. That's a really good tactic too.
Yeah, and it's like, don't purposefully set low standards for yourself if you know you can do better. If you know you can do better, put everything into it.
I do know that I can do better. It's just me gaslighting myself. I need to gaslight myself sometimes. It's great for math class.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have self-poisoning. Now, this is very much an active debate whether this is actual suicide intent. Suicidal
intent?
Yeah, suicidal intent. So it's debatable. People state that it goes into suicidal intent. I'm actually inclined to agree because the description of it is overdosing on medications.
Oh.
Yeah, poisoning yourself or by drinking cleaner. And I'm like, that's suicide. That's a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
That's not self-harm. That's like you're trying to kill yourself.
What was it called again?
Self-poisoning.
Oh, yeah.
Poisoning's a method of death.
Yeah. I almost feel like self-poisoning could be used as like another term. Mm-hmm. Maybe like people using like substances to try and like take something. You know, like nicotine, weed, alcohol, stuff like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. So that's it for types. Let's go into signs. Okay. Eden will cover that.
Yes. So, some of the signs that someone could be harming themselves is unexplainable scars, marks, wounds, or bruises, like over the body. I don't know if she saw me. Anyways, frequent injuries, wearing high cleavage clothing even in hot weather, or just wearing clothing that covers the body a lot.
Coverage.
Coverage? Is that what it says?
Coverage.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm not very good at reading.
You're dyslexic, aren't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
A little bit. But, like, just covering up a lot. Like, wearing sweatpants or long sleeve shirts in the middle of summer, you know, on one of the hottest days. Collecting odd objects like razors, lighters, pins, high use of medical supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you're noticing that your sibling's going through a rough time or something, and then all of a sudden the first aid kit empties a lot faster, that's because they're using it to clean up after they hurt themselves.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense then when you explain it like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Extreme defensiveness of privacy. So, like, blowing up and getting very like agitated if someone is going through like your stuff and whatever.
Well, I'd get agitated if my mom went through my stuff, but
of course,
I mean, like,
there's like a certain degree to it. It's not like your parents
or if they have to see your phone, or if you get pissed off because your parents are changing your bed sheets for you, like that.
Yeah, like that sort of stuff. Like the small little things that your parents are just trying to do to help you. Withdrawal, mood changes, hanging out with friends who self-harm can be a sign, because you might feel, I don't want to say more obligated to do it, but you'll want to try it because your friends are doing it.
Exactly. In the early 2020s or late 2010s, I think it was actually early 2020s because of COVID, it was a trend to harm yourself.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
People were doing it because their friends were doing it, which I find, in my personal opinion, is incredibly dumb.
That is, because it's like you're leaving a permanent scar on yourself. Mm-hmm. But the two last signs. Participating in other potentially harmful behaviors. So, like I mentioned before, smoking, drinking, like doing stuff like that when you're underage.
Or like disregard for your safety when, let's say, because we have train tracks right beside downtown, and there's a bridge over the water with train tracks.
Yeah,
You
just
deliberately hear the train coming and you're staying on the train tracks until the last moment for a laugh.
Yeah, and just being like very reckless and not really caring about if something does end up happening that could be life-threatening to you.
Exactly.
Hair loss and thinning could be a sign too. Is it because of stress? Like you're stressing yourself out?
Stress, and it's often like self-harm is associated with mental illness a lot, and mental illness can associate into hair loss.
Yeah, because it's stress on the body, you know? So,
I will do this next one. We are trading them off. So, it is most common, the most common to self-harm are biological females, or people between the ages of 16 and 19, have a history of adverse childhood events or trauma. So even if you don't remember your childhood, you're at a higher risk of self-harm, because if it was a traumatic block, then that's still. Have low health literacy. So if you have health issues, that's going to cause issues too. If you live with people with mental health disorders, just being around them, or if you have them, high symptoms of anxiety and or depression. You live with physical disabilities, or you're around someone with physical disabilities. Experience sleep problems. I feel like that one's really self-explanatory, how sleep problems can affect you, because wow.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you're prone to maladaptive behaviors, so like substance misuse, internet addiction, running away from home. Now, I don't know if you know what maladaptive means. I didn't until I Googled it. I'm going to be honest with you. That's why we had this slide for you. Maladaptive versus adaptive. Maladaptive describes behaviors that aren't helpful and have negative consequences. Adaptive behaviors promote well-being and positive outcomes.
Oh, okay.
There you go. We're starting to get into mental health and physical health now.
So, these are some of the things that self-harm can tie into mental health. So, self-harm is often done as a form to cope with mental instability. Almost never you will find someone harming themselves because it is fun. If they find it fun, there's no doubt that they have some form of mental health issue going on. Maybe they're just not aware of it, or they just don't want to address it, and they're just trying to cover things. Self-harm is commonly associated with the following mental illnesses. So, mood disorders, borderline personality disorder, or for short, BPD, alcoholism, schizophrenia, adjustment disorder, eating disorders, ADHD, emotional dysregulation. Is that how you say that? Okay. And lack of emotional and impulse control. So,
yeah,
here are some of the ways that it ties into physical health, you know.
Physical health issues can often lead to people feeling unwell and overall depletes the image they hold for themselves. I just dropped my microphone. That must have been ear right there for a moment. Let me repeat that just in case I didn't go through. Physical health issues can often lead to people feeling unwell and overall depletes the image they hold for themselves. So, let's say, even if you just have a broken leg, you're unable to do the things you're used to, that makes you feel upset. And that can lead to you feeling depressed even throughout the duration, and may lead to self-harm. So, physical health conditions often associated with self-harm are chronic illnesses, epilepsy, asthma, migraines, psoriasis, diabetes mellitus, eczema, and inflammatory polyarthritis. There's an ant on your food.
I know. Well, it's not on my food.
No, but it's still on your lid. So, I find that super interesting. Now we have some stats. The sources are linked on our assignment, but since I will have to post this online to get it to the teacher, I will have them in the description. Unless this is on Spotify. Unless this is on Spotify, then I will find a way, okay? I will find a way to get the sources.
You could still put, even if it goes on Spotify, you can still have a description and put the links in there.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So stats, this is from the World Canadian Health Organization. Canadian Health Organization, whatever that is called.
There you go.
Believe it or not, but mental illness is more common than you think. If you think you are alone, you most likely are not. As of 2024, according to the Canadian Mental Health Association, it was right there, and I kept on stumbling over it. Why are you looking as if someone heard me? Stop looking around like that. Okay, so by 50% of the Canadian population will have mental illness. So by 40.
Okay.
Major depression affects about 5.4% of the Canadian population. About 1% of Canadians deal with bipolar. About 1% experience schizophrenia. And then eating disorders affect approximately 1 million Canadians, which is between 0.3% to 1%. And then substance abuse disorders affect 6%. So that's some pretty large stats.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't realize
We're not
there's more.
done.
In 2019, over 4,000 Canadians died by suicide.
Oh my god, that's horrible. Jesus.
Between 2008 to 2009, and then 2018 to 2019. So I believe really it's just 2008 to 2019. Didn't make that much sense. But there has been a 60% rise in mental health visits to the hospital for younger people, so like 16 and 19.
Oh my goodness.
Majority of the time, these mental health disorders also fall into self-harm, which is why these are important to get these stats out.
Yeah.
We're almost at the end.
We're just talking about everything. We want to cover it and everything like that. So, So, how you can prevent self-harm and, like, committing to it, you know, and possibly getting addicted to it. Harming yourself may help you feel like you've regained control of your life. That's not the case, and it never will be. It may feel like that in the moment. Oh my god, there's a squirrel running.
Oh.
But don't square up. But even though it may feel like you're gaining control of your life again by harming yourself, that is not the case. It never will be the case, because you're just causing more harm to yourself, and you're trying to convince yourself that you're not, when you very clearly are. So some of the ways that you can prevent it. So if you're angry, do a physical activity to drain like the anger out of you or your energy. So maybe going for a run, maybe doing a workout, just something to focus your attention to instead of your anger. If you're feeling lonely, isolated, or alone, reach out to friends, family, counselors, or even just a trusted adult to help you feel less alone. I deal with that sometimes, and sometimes I'll be up in my room and I'll feel like I can't be in my room, or else like I can't trust myself. So then I'll just go downstairs. I'll sit downstairs for a little bit, watch TV with my parents, pet my dogs, pet my cat, whatever. Just until I feel okay enough to go back to my room, because even something as small as that can help significantly.
And it also helps you realize you're not alone because they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just right there, even if they're not saying anything to you. If you're feeling like numb, almost like emotionally numb or something like that, do activities that you enjoy or assist in your physical health, like showering, playing a video game, or even reading a book, because it can kind of stimulate you in a way. It stimulates your brain in a way so you can not feel as numb. These are some of like a few other things that you can do. So you can spend your time outdoors, try yoga, even if it's just from like YouTube or something. Spend time with your loved ones, talk with a friend, listen to positive music, because music has a huge impact on like your mental state and things like that.
And also, if you can't listen to positive music, like you can't handle, I don't know, Despacito. If you can't handle Despacito, then I'm going to recommend 21 Pilots, because 21 Pilots I don't think their music is necessarily super positive, but it's upbeat enough to get you feeling better.
Yeah, it's not like if you pay attention
sunshine,
to
lollipops, rainbows.
Yeah. Like if you were to pay attention to the lyrics, you can like very obviously tell it is not that like positive, but it's also like you listen more for the beat. That's kind of what stimulates your brain. If
I'm sad at 3 a.m, I'm not turning on 21 Pilots if I want to stay in my sadness, right?
Like,
I recommend Katy Perry if you're sad. Teenage Dream.
Katy Perry is good.
Katy Perry 2010.
Yeah. Just old like music that you would grow up on, that you would hear from like the radio. Stuff like that can really make a huge impact in making you feel better.
And don't listen to country. Half of those are grown men being depressed about being single or broken up with, so I don't think that's going to help you.
Yeah, and there's severe country, alcoholism.
Yeah, that's not.
No.
No.
And you can even do something like creative, like drawing, and it doesn't have to be on paper. Whenever I'm feeling stressed out or I'm bored or just feeling any type of way, whether it's negative or positive, I will always be drawing, whether it's in like a journal I have or
we just had an Amber Alert test. Your phone?
Oh, no, mine is fine.
Anyways, so that was a little bit of a pause. I'm sorry. We had an Amber Alert test there.
We were kind of rambling a bit though, so it was kind of good. Do you want to do this one?
Yes, I will do this one.
Okay.
I want to yap. Yep, let me yap.
Yeah, I yap a little bit too much, so.
More extreme ways to prevent self-harm. So it will give you that little bit of that sting you may be requiring or whatever, but it's not going to harm you. So hold ice in your hands, snap rubber bands on your wrists, pinch yourself lightly. Yeah. Lightly. We're not doing the self-harm pinch, we're doing a light pinch. Draw or paint red lines onto your skin because it also helps give the illusion that you are harming yourself, but you're not.
And like, I've had a counselor tell me to do like the rubber band or even to just draw myself with a red pen to almost make it feel like I did commit like a form of self-harm, but I didn't actually, and it'll just wash away eventually.
Exactly. Okay, I got like flies surrounding me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have some mosquito bites.
Don't say that.
Get off of me, bug. Holy cow. Sorry, guys. Anyways.
I think you killed it.
Eat sour or spicy candies. Squeeze a stress ball. Punching soft objects like pillows or cushions, or scream into a pillow. I'm really good at screaming into pillows. That should be a full-time job. I do it for fun. Okay. I will let Eden eat, so I will do the next slide. If you can't stop, here are minimization tactics for after you harm yourself. Sterilize what you are. Sterilize what you were using to harm yourself, okay, so you don't get infections. Treat injuries immediately afterwards. The website said to do it with someone else with you, but I don't recommend that because that's like, hey, can you watch me slit my wrists? I don't think that's a very good idea.
And it's like, there's a certain feeling after you commit self-harm of like guilt, where you just feel so horrible and disgusted about what you did.
I just don't think having someone else there is a good idea.
No, it's not, because if you're feeling that like heavy guilt and that heaviness in your chest, you don't want anyone to see it, and you just kind of want to keep it to yourself. So I wouldn't recommend that. She wouldn't recommend that. It's just not really good unless it works specifically for you.
Yeah, the final one we have is reduce intensity. So instead of cutting yourself, you scratch yourself. At the end of the day, it does less harm, but that is still self-harm.
But it's not like a permanent thing. You're not going to always have that mark on you. So here is a list that we have. Excuse me. There we go. Of what self-harm can lead to if you are like sticking to it and you're addicted to it and you don't want to get help. Self-harm can lead to several different scenarios, and almost none of them are good. None of them are going to be good. So it can lead to suicide, whether it's intentional or not, time in a mental facility, loss of friends because they like might try and get you to stop and you just don't want to, failing school or getting fired from your job or your work, And on a very rare note, you'll realize what you're doing is wrong and that you're ill, and then you'll heal. That's one of the good things that self-harm can lead to, because you'll realize that you don't have to feel that way forever and you can find help. You just need to take the time and the energy and put it into finding someone who's right for you to help you. Mm-hmm. And then this is what it can lead to,
but
which is less severe. Yes.
So infected wounds and a bigger risk of health problems later in life. So let's say you're substance abusing, you have a higher chance of dying earlier. So I'm going to do a next slide too, because that was a very short slide.
Yes.
So we have treatment. So the kinds of treatment for self-harm are going to a mental health retreat or facility, talking to a licensed therapist or counselor, tell a trusted adult so the trusted adult will help you, or go to the hospital.
Yeah, because sometimes even signing yourself in is the best thing to do.
And now we have the 2 big questions answered for you. Mm-hmm. So to recap, you want to do the first one or the second one?
I'll do the first one.
Okay, so recap, read out the question, then read out our answer.
Okay. Let me zoom in, because I can't see that far.
Oh my god, it's on my food! Get away! We have an ant here harassing our food. Just for the aesthetics of the background.
So the first question was, if you don't remember, it was how much nature versus nurture comes into play when somebody developed the traits connected to self-harm and eventually commits it. So mental illness is connected to genetics. Sometimes it's not always, but there are cases where it does connect to your genetics. So you could have a happy life, but genetics will make you mentally ill and develop some sort of mental issue. Your environment can also affect your mental state. So
yeah, if we want to dip into anthropology for environment, it could be where you grew up and stuff like that. But also, this is where I want to go into sociology too. Mm-hmm. It could be who you grew up with. What were your peers like? What was your group like, right? Yes. What was your family like? That's a sociology aspect. So we're not going to cover really anthropology and sociology, but I just want to get that across.
Yeah, because it's like, if you're living in a horrible place and you're surrounded by horrible people all the time, you are going to be more susceptible to mental illnesses. And of course, the opposite, if you're living in a good house with good people around you, you are less likely to get mental health issues, but it's not like a 0% chance. You know, you can still develop some sort of mental health issue.
And then, so the final question is, how do people make meaning and purpose out of self-harm? People think of it as an escape, a way to find purpose and control over their lives. That's just a short, quick, and easy answer. That's honestly all that it is, how people make meaning and purpose out of it. But how do you make meaning and purpose out of your scars? That's the question. You can think of yourself as, after you've self-harmed and you're done with it and you have scars, you can think of it as a war that you won with yourself.
Yeah.
You won a war with yourself, you're still here, you're still breathing, and that is what matters. And
don't think of it as like, oh, I went through a horrible patch and I'm forever going to have these scars. Don't think of it like that. Don't think of it as in a negative lighting. Think of it in a positive way. So like Becca said, think of it as you went through something horrible and you were battling something and you could have so easily taken your life, but you didn't. And you stayed and you found help for yourself and you recovered from it. And so those scars that you have are just a reminder that you're alive, you're a person, you're here, and things do eventually get better, no matter how hard it gets.
And that is a wrap to our entire podcast video, however our teacher is viewing this. Yeah. I'm going to do an entire little outro because this is uploaded online, just in case someone else is watching this.
Yeah.
I hope you guys did enjoy listening on to our little podcast here for our assignment. I know we loved researching.
Definitely. I think we loved the yapping part more.
Yeah.
We sat here for
this was our motivation. We were like, okay, Wednesday, there's no school. We're going to go out and then we're going to talk.
We're going to get food. We're going to get coffee.
Yeah, she has more left.
Sit in the park, and we're gonna talk.
Oh,
We're gonna yap. Like, we fully sat here for like an hour.
No, I think it's closer to 45 minutes, but
Well,
either way,
close enough.
45 minutes. Hello. But either way,
We're gonna be famous.
Never. Either way, that was our presentation on self-harm and multiple things about it, how you can prevent it, etc., with the 2 big questions. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
Hold on.
Oh.
I just want to make a little point. I know we've already... Calm down. I know we've made this point already multiple times, but it's still really good to just address the fact that if you're going through like self-harm currently, you don't have to do it and you don't have to feel alone. You can even find someone who you don't know who might have scars or something, and you can just talk to them. Try and ask them about how they might have recovered, and just get resources to help yourself, because you never have to stay and feel horrible in your own skin, in your own head.
Exactly.
So.
Okay. You just had to outdo me with the outro, didn't you?
I didn't mean to. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you for watching. Bye.